Hot take. There are not enough EDC things of value to continually make good content. That is fire. That is a nuclear take. Thank you, Drapes88. Price doesn't mean anything. My best pieces cost me sub $20. Okay, Grandpa, what year was that? No, I'm just kidding. I mean, sub $20 in today's, in 2025, I would be curious and impressed by that. Why does the machined and mass-produced EDC prevail over handcrafted and small producers? And then right after that, we got Subshirt saying there are too many budget knives out there that are almost identical.
Capitalism, baby.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Carry the Way, the weekly podcast where we nerd out about all things EDC gear and maybe try to teach you a thing or two while we're at it. I'm Bernard, the founder of everydaycarry.com, and I'm joined by our editor, Mikey.
Hello.
So if you're new to the show, welcome. Here we talk about the latest in EDC gear, answer questions from the community, and review pocket dump submissions from our viewers. And if you've listened before, we just want to say thanks so much for all the support. And just a quick reminder to give a thumbs up to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already, because it really helps the channel. So I was chuckling in that intro because I was thinking about how we were recording this whole episode already, and then 45 minutes into it, I was like, you know what? I hated all of it. Can we start over? And then poor Mikey here is recovering from an illness, and I'm making him do this over again, and his voice is already shot. So
it's not like
sorry,
we've
Mike.
done this for 60 episodes already.
Yeah, I know. We should be kind of dialed in.
The true professionals that we are.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for laughing at the thought of your continued suffering, but
it's fine.
Yeah, so why don't we start the show like we usually do, and I ask you what's in your pockets.
Yeah, sure. Joining the almonds and the buttons in my pockets are pills, a lot of pills these days. Like you said, I've been trying to recover from a pretty bad cough for the past 2 weeks. Hit the doctor, everything's fine. So it's just a matter of recovery now and rest. And it just really sucks that the doctor's appointments are during the day and I have to work at night. So all of my rest is kind of chopped up and it's not continuous, and it just makes me feel
so basically
worse.
It's not rest.
It's not rest.
Yeah.
So hopefully going to this weekend, it's a bit more restful. And and I do have one more thing for pocket check. I'll save it later for the news because it's going to be part of the news cycle. But yeah, how about you? Anything new for your pocket check?
Well, first of all, I'm not trying to judge you for just carrying a bunch of pills. I'm sure you have your reasons, but how are you carrying those pills?
Honestly, they're just on the side of my desk because I'm not going anywhere.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But in the pocket, you're just raw dogging it.
They're just
loose in the pocket.
Straight up foiled packaging. Just right in the pocket. Yeah.
Okay. Because I was thinking there must be some kind of EDC oriented solution for that. And maybe our viewers have some ideas. I have one, and I think I've mentioned it on the show before, but I might as well repeat it. This contact solution, when you buy contact solution, they come with the free contacts cases
with a screw-on covers.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's one for the left eye, one for the right, so it's color coded and everything. That is very cheap, easy, durable, airtight kind of packaging for pills if you need that, and you could just slip that in your coin pocket, toss it in the bag or whatever. You just need to know that it's not your contacts, there's pills in there. So so that's a free EDC tip.
Top
rare
tip.
Rare that we actually give useful advice on this show, so cherish that. But as for me, I'm also carrying something that I will reveal in the news cycle coming up. But then I switched out my knife from before, so the Artisan Wizard. I think I was complaining about how it's just kind of too big, so I pulled the around square base out of the pouch, put it back in the little coin pocket carry. So this has been fun.
Nice.
And it's
still one of our favorites.
Yes. I mean, I still like it. And we're heading into summer soon. I don't know, it's kind of warming up here, but it'll probably necessitate a lighter carry. So I'm kind of rotating this back in. And then I also forgot to mention this in the first take, but I am carrying the Ridge Desert Warrior stuff. So
nice.
This collab, not really my aesthetic, but
has it started up any conversations for you? Have you busted that out and people are like, hey, that's pretty cool?
No, actually.
No.
No. Oh well, but yeah, I guess I don't know. Like the weird thing about this, so like this is fun, it's playful, it's colorful, it's like well made and all that. The funny thing though is ever since I switched to this really bright colored wallet, I've forgotten my wallet at home so much more often. I don't know why that is, but like maybe just because it's such a departure from my usual aesthetic of like phone wallet keys that I'm used to. Like even before when I would switch out my wallet, I would always still have the titanium keychain or key case because it matches like the carabiner and the rest of the gear I have is all titanium. So I
Right.
guess to me that I think of it as like if it's titanium, I need to carry it before I head out. And then with these, it's so different that maybe I'm just like, oh yeah, that's just like a cute thing on my desk, and I don't think to like actually put it in my pocket. So the hidden
Or
downside of donut themed gear.
or you have a subconscious aversion to donuts. I don't know. It's
No,
like
dude, I
keep
don't
away,
know.
keep away.
Yeah, I don't know. I had this kind of donut from Krispy Kreme the other day.
Mm,
It's so sweet. It's too
it
sweet,
is.
and I like donuts. But yeah,
I
maybe that's
love
what did it.
donuts.
Yeah,
I can
maybe
only
that's
take
what did it.
the basic glaze these days.
Yeah,
Everything else is just way too sweet now.
yeah.
I'm
So.
taking like normal cold brew or just plain Americanos when I go out to get coffee. It's just
Mhm.
like miss me with all that sugar. I'm getting too old for all the sugar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, I can't handle it anymore. Like my heart, I get like palpitations, and then the next morning I wake up and I'm all like sore and inflamed.
Oh
It's
no.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So leave all the sweets to the EDC gear. I also
Yes,
don't
I
recommend
agree.
licking these. They're not as sweet as like they don't taste as sweet as they look. I
Yeah.
did that for science. Just
Nice.
don't be me. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And then, like I said, something that we'll tease in the news cycle is
Sure.
for my carry. Yeah. Cool. So before we jump into the news, why don't we shout out our sponsor of today's episode, which is our parent company, Ridge. Ridge is best known for their premium minimalist metal EDC wallets with RFID blocking technology and a lifetime warranty. But they make all sorts of EDC gear these days, like EDC knives, key organizers, wedding bands, machine pens, backpacks, and hardshell luggage too. I use their products every day, as you just saw, and so do a ton of other people with over 50,000 5-star reviews. And they make gear in quality materials like carbon fiber and titanium in a bunch of new matching colors and designs. And you can try them out with a 99-day risk-free trial to see if you like them. Now is the perfect time to upgrade your EDC with Ridge because they're running a 12-year anniversary sale with savings up to 40% off. So check it out at ridge.com/carrytheway. And supporting Ridge means you're supporting this show too. So thank you, and thanks again to Ridge for sponsoring today's episode. Yeah, so let's just jump right into it. I have on my desk the first part of our new segment, and it is a new Ridge product, but is very squarely in the EDC realm. Let me see if I can get them on screen. These guys are so small, these little guys.
But hear me out.
Yeah, these are not in the pool. They're just like this. So these are the Ridge Mini Folder, and it is kind of their take on the Victorinox Classic SD kind of thing.
Nice.
So these are not 58 millimeters. I think they're like 67 or something, a little bit bigger. Yeah, 67. No. Yeah, 67 millimeters. So that's like a 2.6 inch total length when closed.
Hmm.
So really small though. Like you could put this on the keychain. The keychain attachment point is a stainless steel, and then it's got a 1.6
Double
inch blade.
double detent
Um,
also I can see.
yeah, double detent on slip joint. So
Nice.
this has all and the 14C28N Sandvik steel with
Awesome.
the black coating, and yeah, and a 1.6 inch blade. So I personally think the blade to the handle ratio, this is like a pretty small blade, but when you think about that, this is meant to be like a lower cost. So this one's 65, and then for the aluminum, the like kind of Cerakote aluminum, um, or powder finish aluminum, I should say. And then it comes in also the carbon fiber. This is 85, and the Stonewash grade 2 titanium is also $85. Um,
So 65 or 85.
yeah, 65 or 85. So the base materials are going to be 65. But as I was saying, this is kind of like lower cost option, but also non-locking, non-threatening, not too big. So it's like you can carry this in a lot more places, and probably just keychain duty for like this is probably a lot of knife for
Most
that,
people.
yeah, for most people basically, which
Yeah.
in itself is kind of a hot take, and we'll get to those later. Spoiler alert, we got more hot takes. um but yeah, I just got these, so I haven't really tested them myself, but these should be out by the time this episode comes out, uh, on the Ridge website. So
Yeah.
pretty cool. It kind of does remind me of the Around Square, which is kind of why like I wanted to carry it as my main.
Yeah.
It has the same kind of rectangular, symmetric, kind of well machined form factor to it that just you kind of just want to manipulate it and feel it. It has like nice chamfers on the edges, and it's just flat and kind of smooth, but it's small enough that you can just grip the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, ergonomics I would say aren't like the best for hard use, but that's not what this is for.
Yeah.
So
It's
just like
definitely leave and forget on your keychain, and you always have a backup
mhm.
knife on you. And yeah.
Yeah, and it looks cool when it's closed. Like I think this like on a keychain would just look cool.
Yeah.
You know.
Especially in the titanium, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Pretty
so probably
simple.
if you like the Victorinox Classic or anything in that Philly 58 millimeter size, you're probably gonna like this, or you're gonna find a use
Yeah.
for it. Yeah.
Because the thing with the Victorinox classics are the blade is so thin. It's like a pen knife. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
thin for that size. So this is like more of feels like a beefier blade, and there's a lot of handle. I think for a keychain kind of knife.
Is the blade stock particularly thin or thick, or just about appropriate for
No,
the size?
it seems, yeah, not too thin or not too thick. It seems about proportional.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. And then
but yeah.
14C28N is one of the best budget
Mhm.
steels as well, so not losing out on a lot of performance either. So pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I know a lot of people could get by with this as their only knife, and I'm sure a lot of people will, like when this launches on Ridge. But for our audience, like I'm aware, like a lot of people would think of this more as like a backup or
Yeah,
a keychain or throw it in a
absolutely.
pouch. Yeah.
Yeah.
So got to keep that real. So that is 65 for the aluminum versions, and then 85 for the premium materials like grade 2 titanium or carbon fiber 3K weave. So yep,
Cool.
that's the everyday, no, sorry, that's the mini folder, kind of like small companion to the Ridge everyday
Every folder,
folder. Yeah, which
which
is
I
their larger
really like.
crossbar
Yeah,
lock. Yeah.
that one I
And I
really
say
like.
larger, it's not like a large knife at all, but
Yeah.
yeah. So let's look at the next thing in our news
Yeah.
cycle.
So what if people are looking for a larger knife?
Oh, a larger knife? Yeah, let me share my screen. We can check this out. Boom. What do we got here? Another
looks like
Vosteed.
a looks like a clipped Cybertruck. It's got that
Yeah.
general profile. But why don't I set this up? It's the latest knife from Vosteed. They're calling it the Leopard, and it's
Hmm.
made by Gavko Knives. And Gavko is known, if you take a look at his Instagram and his other collaborations, he's done collaborations with We Knife and Civivi. He
Hmm.
does very, very unique blade shapes, like not your standard drop point, not your standard clip point or anything. Like even taking a look at this Leopard, it could look like a Warncliffe, and then there's just abrupt cut off at the very end, and you've got a very long thumb hole as well, and
Hmm.
the blade to handle shape is very unique as well. So yeah, so if you take a look at other Gavko knives, he does really really unique stuff. He does a lot of handle textures that are really different. He does this really interesting rock pattern. He does lots of different modified blade shapes. This looks like the hyphen. This is probably the custom version of the hyphen he made for Wii. And it's not your
Hmm.
standard like top
Oh,
switch.
the
It's not your
Miko.
standard. Yeah. And he does like
That's
really
his
cool
fan.
anodizing and stuff. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so this is his latest collaboration, and he's doing it with Vosteed. And I think I haven't checked the specs. What are the main specs for this one? Is it LMAX?
It's M390
M390.
on
Okay, so
this yeah, with the titanium handle and
yeah,
the
super
yeah, I think it's
premium.
M390 on all of them. Yeah, just different like anodizations
Yeah,
and
so it's on the upper edge of
pivot.
the Vosteed premium stuff.
Hmm.
So should be about 250. Is that right? 250.
Yeah,
Yeah,
250.
250. That's the price here for the higher end of the Vosteed knives. But you're getting a lot of knife. Obviously, you're getting the collaboration, the design, the
Yeah.
M390, and titanium handles, like winning combinations all around.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of design value in this. Um did you order a sample for me?
I'll get one for you. Yeah,
You don't have to. I'm just curious because then it's
yeah.
like, oh, I should keep an eye out. Um, but yeah, what do
And
you
top
think of
liner as
the?
well.
Yeah, I like top liner lock. I
Yeah,
like this blade shape. It's kind of like snubbed, but sheep's footy, but it has
right.
like some visual
It's hard to
interest to it.
describe. Yeah,
Yeah, it kind of looks like a dinosaur when it's closed. That's
I was just
interesting.
thinking the
Yeah.
dinosaur head. Yeah.
Looks like a dinosaur head when it's closed. But what do you think about this handle to blade ratio, especially when it's open?
I have a smaller knife, or had a smaller knife that had a larger blade and then a tapering handle just like this.
Hmm.
Gotta be honest, it feels weird, or
I
it
personally don't like it, to be
it
honest.
looks
Yeah.
weird and it feels a little weird, even though it
Hmm.
works. Like clearly, this is still a full handle. You get like
Yeah.
finger choil, and it's obviously contoured to fit the hand really well. But just looking at it, it looks malnourished. It
Uh
looks a
huh.
little
It doesn't
skinny.
help with the milling here, where it's just yeah,
It
it's like
just
you can
makes
see
it
the
look
ribs are
even
visible.
exactly. It makes it look even thinner and more
Uh
gaunt and
huh.
everything. So I love the blade shapes. Like when I was looking through Gavko stuff, I love all of his blade designs. It's all
Yeah.
right up my alley of unusual and kind of chunky and aggressive looking blade lines. But this handle, I don't know. It's kind of not doing it for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but closed, it looks cohesive when it's closed. It's just that
Yeah.
when it's open, the head is the knife, the dinosaur head is just attached to a very skinny body. It feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
How long is the
when you
blade?
see it, especially like this, it looks strange. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. How long is the blade for this? Looks
This
like
is
a 3 point.
3.38. Yeah,
Okay.
so a little bit on
Yeah.
the bigger side. Yeah.
Right, right. So it could be in hand. It's a big blade that feels and acts like a small blade. It's a big the reverse of what you like of little big blade. It's a big little blade. Could be.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
And
But
then so
on
it
the
also
onset, yeah, it doesn't not that appealing to me as well.
okay. Then why did you pick it, Mike?
I
Because
just love
it's
the
new?
yeah, no, I just love all of the stuff that Vosteed is trying. It's
Oh,
just
that's true.
they're one
Yeah.
of the more prolific knife makers of recent, and
Yeah,
they're
right now,
n-
yeah.
yeah not they're not on the pace of like some of the other brands. It feels like every week there's 20 new knives. So it's
Mhm.
always interesting to me when they make new stuff. Not all of them are. I mean, just being totally honest, not all of them are going to be hits to me like this one. But I
Yeah.
appreciate that they're making new stuff, and you
Okay,
get a
that's
lot of
fair.
knives still, even if the design isn't up to your spec. For 250 for M390 plus titanium, I think that's a pretty solid
Yeah.
solid set of specs. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I feel like the knife world has kind of matured to the point that you can just have specs on paper, but to me, that is not enough.
All right, fair, fair.
Or not, sorry, not to not justify the price, but like I'm gonna need a better reason to pick this at this price point versus something else, and usually it's gonna come down to the design for me. Like, what is the point of view of this knife? Like, what does it serve to do? Because you
Right.
can make another knife that has a 3.3-inch M390 blade with a titanium handle, but there's
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
be some distinct identity to it,
Right.
and
Right.
that it gets harder and harder to find those, especially after the whole like bug out, clone trend kind of thing.
Hmm.
So I do appreciate when something looks funky and tries new things like
Yeah,
this, like top liner lock and like this kind of sheep's foot blade shape, and then the thinned out handle. So
yeah,
yeah, I agree. I appreciate that they're trying it. It's just not to my taste.
yeah, yeah. But if it
Yeah.
is to your taste, like, more power to you. I'm like, we've been a big fan
Hmm.
of Vosteed, and I feel like they have enough models to accommodate a lot of people's tastes. And yeah, if this is a little too funky for you, there's a lot more standard stuff in their catalog that might fit your preference as well. So yeah,
Yeah. And then if you like the design more so than like the fact that Vosteed's producing it, Gavko has uh designs for like Civivi and other brands and stuff. So you could check that
yeah,
out too. So why don't we jump into the last piece of news here?
yeah.
Speaking of things that all look the same, no, I'm just kidding.
Totally fair though.
This is the Air City collection.
Yeah, which is an upgrade of a similar looking city collection.
Mm-hmm.
But I have been okay. So I'll set this up because I'm probably the most excited about this. So the city collection is what I feel like their best bag is part of the city collection, which is the City Pack Pro, and I
City
feel like
Pack
it just,
Pro.
yeah, the City Pack
Ah,
Pro I
okay.
feel like is their best bag because it hits a really nice sweet spot of an everyday bag that is also you can pack it out to be a weekender. Plus, it
Ah,
has
I
a lot
see.
of the standard features that I like, which is water bottle pocket, quick access pocket on the top, dedicated laptop compartment,
Mm-hmm.
um, luggage pass through, which is I've realized that the two things that are non-negotiables for me are a luggage pass through and a quick access pouch. If those two are missing, it's kind of a deal breaker for me
Quick
now. And
access pocket, you mean?
yeah, quick access, yeah,
Uh,
QAP at the top,
okay.
yeah. Because if I'm traveling, that's where I put my earphones, that's where I put my boarding pass, that's where I
Yeah,
put my
yeah.
wallet, and yeah, it's just the most convenient. So I've been trying a
Not
bunch
your
of different.
loose pills, just like
No,
to get ground up into a fine powder. Oh, okay.
more of my almonds and my buttons in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so this latest collection updates a couple of their models: the smaller 16-liter City Pack, the 24-liter City Pack Pro, the City Sling 3, and then the Slim Pouch 2, which is the Slim Pouch is also what I use as my regular tech pack.
Hmm.
But yeah, the other outstanding thing, the that this collection continues, is that it maintains that Air is one of the few brands making regular stuff out of Ultra, which is kind of like the
Yeah.
latest and greatest
That's what I
material.
gravitated towards first, to be
Yeah,
honest.
so
Yeah.
so they're now making their standard 1680D nylon stuff for all of their stuff. They're making X Pack a standard option, and now they're making Ultra a standard option as well. So now you don't have to spend $500 to $600 in a collaboration bag with a special Ultra material.
Hmm.
It's readily available. I think it's fairly priced around the $250 mark for the City Pack Pro and all of that. And
Yeah.
yeah, it just makes since it's the latest and greatest, it's like we've described it before as being in between X-Pac and Dyneema. It's a
Hmm.
really nice modern ultra technical premium material, and now it's like it's readily available for everybody and across some really popular models. So yeah, so like I said, City Pack Pro is my uh, one of my favorite bags of all time. I have the, I don't know if you can see it in the camera. I got the City Pack Pro 2 just to make the comparison. I really
Okay.
like it. They've streamlined the design a little bit, mixing design elements from another one of their lines, the Pro Pack line, along with the City Pack Pro line. So it feels like it's a natural evolution of that design. So yeah, so if
Okay.
you're looking for like a very nondescript San Francisco urban
Tech bro kind of.
tech bro kind of bag, there's your there's your company, man. What can I
Yeah,
say?
air is pretty
Yeah,
safe.
yeah,
But you know, one thing I was okay. Well, actually, to get some specs out of the way,
sure.
the city pack is 16 liters, so that's just
That's right.
like a day pack. Like
Yeah,
probably not
exactly.
traveling very far with it, if at all. So this
Mhm.
is just the essentials for a day. Like I think 16 liters, like that is probably the minimum if you're gonna use a bag in that way. Like a
Yeah,
backpack, you need a backpack. Probably
yeah.
16 liters. We jump up to 24 liters with the City Pack Pro 2, which
Mhm.
is what you would use as like an overnight or like short haul kind of
Mhm.
flight travel bag, right? And has those features
Exactly.
for it.
Yeah.
Then it's got just the sling, and we've seen that sling bags, crossbody slings, especially this really small style, is popular now. um, not even just people in the EDC world, just generally, normal people be doing that. I think because phones
Mhm.
got too big for pockets, and then they
Yeah.
just need everything in a sling. And then there's also other carry options like the tote, and then
Yeah.
tech folio, stuff like that. So it's like a full kind of travel system, I would say. And
Yeah.
then I don't. Did we speak to why it's the city collection? Just because it's like
Um
all around urban use.
exactly. Yeah. That's
Okay.
exactly it. Yeah. So
Okay. Sure.
they have a travel collection that's more the larger sizes, 40 liters, 45
Yeah.
liters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the city collection is more of their um it's like a crossover commuter bag basically.
Okay.
Because they also have a fitness collection that's more it has like a shoe compartment and stuff. So this line is
Right. Right.
specifically
Right.
like an urban crossover commuter bag slash travel overnighter type thing. Yeah. But
Is
like you
is it
said,
a
yeah.
is it a brain dead take if I think that this design is looks very not looks dated, but the core elements of this design of just like the full U zip opening with the zippered pockets horizontally across the front of it, and then an admin panel, and then water bottle pockets on the side, and a quick access pocket on the top, and a laptop compartment in the back. That's like, I feel like that's been the
Oh
standard
yeah.
EDC bag design for a while.
It's
So there's like no gimmicks involved here, is what I'm trying to get at.
no,
But
no.
after all these years, like, it still prevails.
It's kind of like the how the iPhone looks the same now every
Uh huh.
generation. It's just iterations and just improvements to subtle things. Like the
Right.
main reason I wanted to get this is I wanted to compare it to the V1, which is like my all-time favorite bag, and I feel like the subtle improvements and the differences in shape
What are
warrant
those
them to
subtle
be.
improvements for
It's a
people who
bit
might?
yeah. So the V1 is a lot boxier. It feels like you're wearing an astronaut backpack. You know how it's just like a rectangle on your back.
Uh huh.
That's what it looks like, and that's what it wears
Like a jetpack.
like a jetpack exactly.
Okay.
And this one, it's like you can see that the front tapers down a little bit, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just like more angled. And I'll send photos to our editors, show it on screen of
Yeah, I
the
see it.
difference with me wearing each of them. One of them definitely looks boxier, and it's like
Yeah.
this
This is
one is
more
more like
like egg like.
egg like, turtle shell like. It's more
Yeah.
it wraps around my back much better. And yeah, like the slight tweaks in that design. And I also like that the luggage passer is vertical now because I've like putting the V1 sideways all the time on my luggage. It crushes my fingers. It
Oh
jostles my
yeah, I would
stuff
not do
inside the
that.
bag. Yeah, it got really annoying.
I feel
So
like that would throw off the load of the entire
yeah,
luggage. So if you're
it
rolling
shifts the
it,
stuff
yeah,
inside. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Okay, we're getting pretty nerdy. I think that's plenty on the Air
Yeah.
City collection. So
So if
check
you're
that if
looking
you
for
want.
yeah, if you're looking for just a standard low profile, no loud logos or anything, very featured, distilled urban EDC design type of bag for a fair
Hmm.
price, or if you want to try like Ultra as a material. Yeah, so
Yeah,
lots of options for you to choose from now.
yeah. And this starts as low as 149 for a backpack. I see. I
Yeah,
see.
yeah, the
All
Cordura
right.
is a lot cheaper. Yeah,
Yeah. So that's, I think, everything for the news cycle. Why don't we jump into our like community response section? I'm not going to call it
mm.
Q&A because we're changing some of the prompts a little bit. For this episode, I asked for hotter takes than the last episode.
Yeah. Last ones were kind of lukewarm.
I was like, yeah, okay, I can see why you might think that you're being, like hot right now, but
Yeah,
let's try a little bit harder. So I think we succeeded there. So let's just jump into those. Do we want to start with the most nuclear take?
let's do it. I think this is
Okay. So Drapes88 says, hot take. There are not enough EDC things of value to continually make good content. Dude, when I saw this, I was like, okay, that's what I'm talking about. That is fire. That is a nuclear take. Thank you, Drapes88.
as the person who looks for the new stuff. I agree. It's a lot of it's a lot of bursts of interesting things, or one or two interesting things for like a quarter, and then it's just a lot of iterations of like a standard product line for knives and stuff like that. To look for the really exciting stuff, you're really digging deep into like the custom stuff, into the super enthusiast stuff to do for people who are doing actually something different and really setting themselves apart. But to do that
Yeah,
also, it comes at a price, and it prices out interest. It prices out a lot of accessibility to those products, meaning we can't get them in our hands to make content about them. So
right.
yeah, so
I was gonna say, like you're saying, oh, the most interesting stuff is done by the small makers and it's like more expensive. Like, what if you're just not interested in a product if it has to be done at that scale? What if you're only interested in things that
also,
can reach
yes.
a lot of people and like move a lot of units? Because maybe more entrepreneurial or like business minded people are interested in like, okay, what is Yeti's new backpack play after acquiring Mystery Ranch, and how is that going to change their earnings? I know not many people think about that, but I think about that a
Mm,
little bit. And yeah, I do agree with the take. And this is a little meta and maybe touchy for us to talk about because we are content
trying to
creators
make
in the
content, yeah.
space, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, to be honest, like I can't make all the content that I would want to that I think is good. And I don't know if it's necessarily maybe like an indictment on the quality of EDC products that would warrant an engaging video. It's just I think it's a combination of um, products are designed in a way that sells, right?
Yeah.
But then also maybe there aren't enough new challenges in the world that require tools that are truly innovative. So there's maybe some stagnation in that sense. And then also the way that the landscape of content itself, right? Like
Mhm.
what people actually choose to watch and what products they choose to buy, those are all factors to consider here. And yeah,
And
so
there's also the factor of the interest comes in waves, right? Like for example, if you take a look at tech right now, it's kind of
mm,
really really boring.
mm,
It's all the same phones every single year. Um, there's no big advancements in like VR or AR and stuff. Um, we're not seeing any large improvements over laptops and stuff like that. So tech is kind of on the downturn right now. It's like the
mm,
interest. People already have the stuff and are not really looking for or being exposed to new innovative things. And same thing with EDC stuff. Sometimes, like last year was a really exciting year for like really cool, exciting knives. There's a lot of happening in the EDC space. But now this year, it's kind of it's there was a bit of excitement at the start of the year, and I've completely forgotten what that was. And it's just
uh-huh.
like it feels like we're coasting on the EDC side compared to a few years ago when like everything is interesting. People wanted to buy so much stuff, and there's a lot more categories that got interesting. Like bags had a moment, fidget toys had a moment, flashlights had a moment, and it was just a lot to look at, a lot to report on, a lot to share with other people. And now I feel like stuff is kind of plateauing and people are kind of just like tempering. The market is kind of tempering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I I don't know if that's just because. Well,
We
okay,
are
I'm trying
tired.
to. No, I'm trying to think like, is this a, uh, how can I articulate this? Because Drapes's take is that there are not enough EDC things of value, right, to
Mhm.
continually make good content. And then what
Yeah.
you're kind of describing is you're just talking about like the stagnation of the releases so far this year. Granted, we're not even at the end of the first quarter,
Right,
right?
right.
So it's like there's still plenty of the year to get through. But when you consider just like a lot of these brands, they might be struggling right now because like you look around at the world, there's like trade wars going on, or sorry, maybe that's not the right term. There's a lot of uncertainty and change in the
Mhm.
way that trade is being conducted and business is being conducted across countries, and I think that can affect like the release cycle of things. Maybe things get delayed, maybe some projects like get canned because it would be too expensive or whatever. So there's like just so many factors, I think. But the heart
Yeah.
of this question or this take is I think we can look at what are EDC things of value, and then what is good content. I think those are the two questions you look at to see if this take makes sense. And I
Yeah.
think there's something there. Um,
I,
and
I
it's
I think I want to update my answer from earlier too. I also feel like the EDC community has matured a bit, so that even though there are new things, there's not going to be as much excitement from people sharing that and from people seeing it. Do you know what I mean? Like, sure, there
yeah.
can be three amazing new knives that come out in the next week or so, but people already have knives. They're happy with what they have. Not enough to be excited about the new thing, and also not enough to purchase the new thing. And I feel like that's part of this question that,
Yeah.
um, yeah, the community has matured and has enough of the core stuff that they value. Like people are steady kind of with their
Okay.
EDCs.
I'm starting to form a thread here. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
so there's a combination of people kind of like you're saying they've matured a little bit, maybe they have more awareness, because I see all the comments on TikTok and they're not necessarily core EDC enthusiast people in Discords and on subreddits, because TikTok,
Mhm.
my stuff gets served to everybody. A lot of them are just saying like, yo, this is just consumerism. To a point, I agree. Okay.
Right, right.
Some of it, like, admittedly, is for some people, and like that's okay. But I think, am I going to lose this thread? You were saying that some people, yeah, they're kind of like more aware, more mature. They're not going to buy this thing. Oh yeah, okay, now I remember. The second part of it, what continually make good content, the content that was good in the past was a lot of like product recommendation and
Mhm.
influencer, like the standard influencer type stuff. And then now I think what you're saying is there's sort of a pushback against this, or a fatigue around being influenced new products at this blistering pace all the time, where it's just like,
Yes.
actually, I already just bought the thing you told me to buy and I'm still enjoying that. So now that you
Yes.
show me this really cool thing, like that's cool, but like I'm not in that uh
I don't
stage to
need
like
that
buy
right
it.
now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
as a content creator who has done that before, I will say I enjoy the discussion on podcasts more than just like, don't buy this Vosteed knife because this is in this, and that's actually a joke because haha, I meant you should buy it because this is, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I've done a lot of those, and I do want to tackle different types of concepts or ideas within the scope of EDC.
Yeah.
But I honestly, like, transparently, I don't know if that will really resonate or people will find it interesting for me to actually do that on the channel.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where I'm at as a content creator of EDC things, in response to this hot take. I think there's a lot just to think about from what this take uh, suggests or implies. And I don't know, I'm really curious what people who are maybe not on the creator side, but the consumer side,
Yeah.
who listen to an hour and a half long podcast of guys talking about EDC. I'm curious what you guys think of this. So thank you.
And I feel like also, what is good content about EDC anymore these days? Are we good content about EDC? I am
Maybe to
curious to.
like, yeah, a couple hundred people who think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see like a lot of them are like kind of buying guides to like making your own EDC setup, or like certain gadgets that you could buy under this price point, or like a long-term review or something, or unboxing and
Yeah.
first impressions of something. That's all like fairly standard. I don't think any of that really kind of breaks the mold, I guess. I will say, I'm just going to throw this out here, and maybe by saying it, then I will have to speak it into existence. Is I'm interested in making uh, EDC video essays from an anthropological lens,
Mm.
and I won't. I will refuse to elaborate, and I think we can move on to the next
I
hot
will
take.
say, I will say that, at least from the purpose, from the perspective of this podcast, we're always looking for stuff to. Um, of course, we want to reach the audience and see what people are interested in. So it's also a work in progress for us, and we're also trying to discover what the continually making good content part of this
Mm-hmm.
can we can work on. So if you have any ideas, if you want us to try new things, if you want us to, if there's anything you want us to, like two old EDC guys to talk
Uh
about,
huh.
we definitely want to be open, and we love definitely we love the feedback we've been getting so far. The community in our comments has been great. These questions have been really great as well. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we'll
So
keep
shout
trying.
outs
We'll do our
to, yeah,
best.
all the viewers and
Hopefully,
commenters. Yeah, thank you.
yeah, hopefully we fall under that good content
Hmm.
blanket term. But yeah, yeah, really good take. I think that's
Yeah.
a lot to think about.
All right, let's cool down the takes a little bit
Yeah.
and see what else we got. So this next take is from Three Dog Forge, and they said price doesn't mean anything. My best pieces cost me sub $20. Okay, Grandpa, what year was that? No, I'm just kidding. I mean, sub $20 in today's in 2025, I would be curious and impressed by that. And we have other followers or other viewers who are kind of suggesting the same sort of sentiment, right? So
Yeah.
Isaiah C671 says like cheaper knives are better to carry than expensive ones, and just using a cheaper knife is better. So I can kind of see where people would conflate higher price with higher quality or higher performance, and that's not always the case. And I think we talked a little bit about this in some previous
Yeah.
episodes.
We talk about
So
this a lot.
yeah, to me, not the hottest take, but yeah, actually, is this hot at all? Because
I
everybody
mean,
agrees with us when we point this out. I don't think
yeah,
anyone
true.
has been like, no, because I paid $500 for this knife, it is objectively better, and you need to validate me. I don't think anybody has said that.
Yeah, true, true.
What are your thoughts on this discussion, Mikey?
I think, well, it always comes back to the what you value, right? It's there's always going to be the two camps for this idea, like the people who are saying that you don't have to spend too much to do a thing, and then the people who are like, but I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah,
it's cool or it looks cool or it makes me feel good. So there's always going to be that balance. I think the difficulty that's always a hurdle for questions like this and for takes like this is the value of the task being performed. Like, it's just a knife, dude, or
uh
it's just a
huh.
bag. It doesn't have to be made out of ultra. It doesn't have to be made out of magna cut to
Mm-hmm.
do the thing it was meant to do. And I think that that idea, that core functionality, is always going to be in conflict with everything surrounding it, like the packaging and the presentation, the cover to the
Mm-hmm.
book, as it were, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's why it always comes up, because people at different stages of life, at different budget points, at different interests, at different depths they are in the hobby, is always going to value one part of that aspect of the thing more than the other, and it's always
Yeah.
going to be different per person.
I was
And in
gonna
this,
say
yeah,
those people are arguing about completely different things. They're not on the same page. It's like not the same
yeah, yeah,
argument. Yeah, one
right,
person
right,
is talking about purely the functionality, and the other person's like, "Yeah, I know it can do that, but I want it to be made of this, or I want it to be made this way by
yeah,
this
yeah.
person." Yeah. So
It becomes a really subjective topic for such an objective um physical thing, if that makes sense. Like
it
the
doesn't. Can you
objective,
try again?
the
Maybe I
objective,
just not
yeah.
here today.
So the objective value is a knife can cut something, right? That's the
Yes.
objective value. That's the main purpose. That's the only thing you have to do. But the subjective thing is, yeah, but I need it to be this shape, this blade steel. I need it to have like Damascus
Yeah, yeah,
patterns all
yeah.
over it. Yeah. So it's always going to be that toss up, and it's always going to be valued different ways by different people at different weights, I think.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of the our interview with Joe Caswell, who like
Mhm.
designs at CRKT, when he was saying like humans are aesthetic creatures. Like they might not admit it, but they are, and that kind of reminds me of that, where the people who are trying to argue purely for what you're calling like the objective value or like the pragmatic function of that thing,
Yeah.
but there's parts of you just by nature of you being a human being, like you want a little bit more than that. Otherwise, we'd be like all cold robots who just do things the most efficient, practical way possible. That would be,
Yeah.
I don't know, kind of a boring life. IMO.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, I'm curious though. Like Three Dog Forges, um, if their best pieces cost them sub $20, how are they qualifying what best is? I feel like it's not gonna be on the aesthetic or uh, outside of the objective function or value that we were talking about. So it's probably all performance or utility based, because they're probably not going to be like, yeah, the best design is my sub $20 thing, or the best fit and finish is for my sub $20 thing.
Yeah.
It's probably just
But it
like the
is the
thing that
most
gets the job
useful.
done. Yeah, exactly,
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly. I
Yeah.
think so. If you're operating in that framework when you're looking for your EDC gear, just like what gets the job done, I don't think you need to spend the most money.
Yeah.
But I think increasingly over time, especially since I started getting into EDC, people value more and more, and I think it's more normalized, just the other
Aspects.
stuff. Yeah, the other
Yeah.
stuff.
The intangibles.
Yeah, yes, thank
Because
you. The
yeah, like
intangibles.
because once you've already fulfilled the need and you still want to be participative of the hobby, you still want to maintain your interest, you need the variety, right? Like variety is the spice,
Mhm.
and to keep yourself interested, to keep yourself in the discussion, to keep yourself as part of the hobby. Unfortunately, sometimes it crosses over into the subjective stuff, so you have something to talk about, right? Otherwise, everybody, like, if we all had the identical same phone, you wouldn't have a hobby of being interested in phones and tech, because you'd all have the same thing, right? You'd all be wearing the same
Yeah,
clothes. Everybody's wearing the same shoes. There's nothing to talk about anymore because it just blends into the background. It's not an interest anymore. It's a function, right?
I just had a crazy thought.
Hit me.
Well, it's not that crazy. It's actually probably stupid, but when people post EDC photos, people are usually primarily evaluating them just on the face value of it, like what they see, what is actually in the photo, not the condition of those things. Maybe that's secondary, because if
Mhm.
people post like a brand new unused EDC, that'll gather some like negative comments.
Yeah,
But what people don't do, I don't think people ever do this, or at least not to my knowledge, is post a brand new EDC photo, all arranged in the same way, and then a 5 years later, all the same gear, how it looks differently photo. And
that sounds like a
in
video idea.
in the way that there's like the whole raw denim community. I'm talking about this because I just accidentally bought a pair of jeans.
Yeah,
But what got me to buy that pair of jeans is how it not how it looks new, but how it looks in 3 years.
fades.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
if there was some equivalent of kind of not glamorizing, um, but not romanticizing either, but just wanting the wear and patina to come through as the main uh, metric or qualifier of like a good EDC, then we would see a lot more of using the same thing over and over and not feeling like, oh, I need to buy all this new gear rotated in to be relevant in the community. It could be just
mhm,
like, hey, how's the journey on the patina of your gear going, and you
yeah.
update with that, and that
And
will
you
be
see this
exciting to
in
people.
and you see this in watches specifically, right? Watches, boots, jeans.
I don't know about watches. Watches is very like consumerism
But
type
then
stuff.
we also celebrate, like, it's something to celebrate if, like, my dad wore the same watch for 40 years every single day, and those are kind of like elevated pieces in the eyes of collectors, right?
Yeah, to some extent. But I
Right.
thought you were
This
talking about just like I scratched my bezel for the first time, and
no,
it's like,
no,
yeah,
no.
no, those are dumb. I think,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah. Anyway, that's wow. We're out there. I don't even know how to bring this back to the question.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the core of it is this question is always going to come up. This take is always going to be
Mhm.
coming up because it's always something. It's always going to be the conflict as a collector in an industry and in a hobby that asks you to consume something, and the fact that you're comparing that to something that has to be useful also. That's where things start to get murky compared to something. It's a little bit more clear cut, I guess, if you're comparing things that aren't as functional as tools, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I get you.
Yeah,
Like when you're talking about just clothing that, and we know that it's just accessories or fashion or something like that, and
yeah,
you can judge it on one dimension. Where
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
I think that's what I'm trying
and
to get at. Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know. I was pretty sweaty about techwear, which was very much it's techwear is basic. I've said this before. Techwear is like the EDC of clothing because
Mhm.
you judge it on function and form. and
yeah.
that's where people start fighting when you have those people in the two camps you described. And depending on what they value, which is probably going to be different for a bunch of people and their stage in the hobby, their budget, all that stuff. So much conflict. I had to walk away from that for a little bit. But we did have a cool podcast episode with This
check
is
that
Antoine
out.
about it. So check that out too. So thank you, Three Dog Forge and Isaiah, for the hot takes. Why don't we jump into this pair that I think is funny to just juxtapose? So Nikos Laus G says, why does the machined and mass-produced EDC prevail over handcrafted and small producers? And then right after that, we got Subshirt saying, there are too many budget knives out there that are almost identical. And I think that these takes are somehow related, or these questions are somehow related, right? The machined and mass-produced stuff prevails because
capitalism, baby.
it's like it sells. It's what the market wants, what they can afford to pay. It's easier to get into. It's just more accessible in so many different ways, right? You don't need the education, not like the academic education, but I mean like the product education to understand why it's worth the money. And you don't need as much of it, especially if the price point is lower because it's been mass produced. And it's it's just like all machines or whatever, versus the handmade stuff, where you see the handmade stuff and you just see the finished product. You don't see the amount of time and the hours and the design and the labor and all that stuff that goes into it that like a master craftsman or artisan or maker would know, if you're just like a casual kind of person. So you might not even know enough to appreciate what you don't know, I guess.
There's also a large factor of scale and economics that goes into this, right? It's at the core of both of them. It's supply and demand. The mass-produced EDC stuff, there's a lot of supply, but there's not a lot of demand. So the supply kind of compensates for the less demand because they're selling at volume. They're selling to more people, but the interest and the desire for that kind of product may be a little less. But then you're also paying for the salaries of the hundreds of people who are making the mass-produced stuff, right? Compare with like a small maker on Instagram. He makes 30 knives a year. The demand is there, but the supply is very low. So that's also going to affect the price, because now it's a one-man operation. He has to price a lot more because he has to live off of the earnings from making the knife, for example. But it's a delicate balance of supply versus demand versus how many hours he has in a day to actually make this stuff, right? Yeah.
Okay, can I pause you because I might have like an embarrassingly poor grasp of basic economics here.
Okay.
You're saying that
I'm just making this up too. So
oh, okay, thanks. Because you're saying that the demand is high for the small maker's goods, and the supply is low. I don't think the demand is high. It might be relatively high for if a small maker has 1,000 followers and he posts a drop, maybe 900 of those followers want that thing, so that's like 90% demand. But then if like Kershaw or something has like 300,000 followers and they post something, I'm sure it's going to be more than 900 people would want that thing. So the demand is like objectively higher. And
there's a relative aspect.
Yeah, I think there's a relative aspect there. So I would say that machined and mass-produced EDC stuff prevails because both the supply and the demand are there. That's why they're big, flourishing businesses that continue to make that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. That's
more correct.
Yeah. So then you have somebody who's saying like there are too many budget knives out there that are almost identical, and I think that is the reality because those are the things that sell and the demand is high and it's easy to make that supply. And the reason they're almost identical is because people want that kind of knife, like that format of that knife, and they want it for cheap. So you can't invest in having like design language that's different or technology that's different or innovation in that sense, because people are willing to pay for the simpler or like more like less unique kind of design, right? The more common design. So there's no incentive for the business to change that either. Kind of have to understand like some basic economics, I guess.
that
have
we
some
just made up
business
on the
acumen.
spot.
Yeah, yeah. To
Yeah, yeah,
understand like why the budget knives look almost identical and all that kind of stuff. There's
yeah.
no, I don't think there's enough competition or like challenges that
And
necessitate that
I
innovation.
also want to make a point to what do you consider prevailing? Because sometimes you can also there's also a relative value to that, right? A small maker who makes 100 knives a year to an
Hmm.
audience of 1,000 people, he sells out all of his knives every single time. That the demand is always there. I think that's a success, isn't it? Based relatively to the person, to the maker, relative to his audience.
Sure.
I think I would consider that like a success. I think there's a different value weighted for that kind of thing you're looking for versus like you what's the idea I'm trying to grasp here? You can't say that it's a defeat for the handcrafted and small producers if they're hitting their targets and if the demand is there. Is what I'm saying. I think
Hmm.
versus um, possibly the overconsumption and in the mass produced side, like there's so many of them being made that it becomes identical, that it becomes commoditized, that people lose
Yeah.
are not as interested in it, and it becomes just like consumerist or kind of wasteful or just kind of hoarding it and collecting it just because it's available.
Yeah, I think I'm
Yeah.
thinking of this more from the business side than the consumer side. So when
Hmm.
I think of things that prevail, my mind kind of goes to the word like prevalent, right? So what is more common and out there and existing,
Yeah.
and to me, the machine that mass produced will prevail over just by the sheer
Yeah. Every
numbers
time. Yeah.
advantage.
Every
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
it's just every time. But then it also makes me think about uh, kind of like brand position, I guess,
Hmm.
and perceived value and maybe luxury or exclusivity. Some
Yeah.
people want the small, well, this is a different thought entirely. Maybe it's a hot take where it's like we should gatekeep the small keepers so that they stay small so I feel cool. You know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean? For
Yeah.
owning them. And let's not let the small makers be so successful that they become bigger
Yeah.
operations that become mass produced.
Sometimes they just don't have time to market themselves. It could be
Yeah.
as simple as that, right? Like they got discovered, and then they have a small batch of people interested in their stuff, and they're trying. Like I've seen a number of brands, a number of makers hit that kind of wall. Like they make something really cool, and then they just don't have enough time to make enough of the thing to please their now bigger audience because somebody caught on to the popularity of the thing or to the
Yeah.
caught on to the found the gem in the rough, right? And now they're like trying desperately so hard to produce more stuff, and they
Yeah.
just can't. They're just like one two people shops, and it's difficult for them to compete at that scale basically.
Right. And, I think a way kind of out of this, or maybe not a way out of this is the right way to say it, but kind of like a potential win win solution is something that I see already. And I like this. And we just had one in the news cycle where if you're as a small maker or a small designer, you make really quality stuff that is going to be sold in limited quantities, but it's more of
Hmm.
like your proof of
Your
it's kind
showcase.
of like your resume, right?
You're right, right.
You're just like showing what your chops are so that you can partner with one of these production companies and you make at scale the thing you want. Maybe it's like
Yes,
90% of the way, but then it's you're not charging 90% of the price, and
exactly.
your design, your all your effort and stuff, well, not all
Is
of it, but
recognized.
yeah, exactly, and represented in these products that are available to more people. So that, like, I thought of like Joe Caswell with the CRKT Provoke, right?
Yeah,
That it's like got so much more popular in the CRKT production versus when it's like the full Caswell custom, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
we see a lot of that, and I personally, for me, like, I'm not as interested in the small maker type stuff. But
Hmm.
I'm super happy when it comes to the production companies because it's just like easier, and like that's enough of the design for me to appreciate. I don't need the full custom expression of something
Right, right.
because I'm not that demanding or like into knives, I guess, in that way. But
Hmm.
I think it's a happy middle ground that works for both the production and the designer. Yeah.
Yeah, that it's nice to not just the having the custom guys make the mass produced version, but also like they make the knockdown versions like CRKT has been doing. It's
Mm-hmm.
the same model, but one of them is a more premium tier. But the second one that looks exactly like it is using like a more affordable steel or not using titanium, it's just using aluminum, and they price it like one fourth. And I think just that accessibility and that relationship between creators and like the small makers plus collaborating with bigger producers, I think that just brings more attention to the
Yeah.
hobby and more accessibility to everybody, which is a good thing, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, let's just gatekeep the cool makers so that
Yeah.
they can't make money, and we feel cool for knowing about them
Who are
before
these
everyone
people
else.
we should be avoiding? Tell me where they are.
Yeah. uh, all right. So I think we have time for maybe one more hot take. I don't know if
Sure.
this is a hot take, but I just thought it would be cool to share this with the audience. So Bruno Vieira says, "The
Yes.
more you know, the less you carry." That's a Morris Kachansky quote. And then he says, "Still, my EDC grows."
Yeah. I mentioned this during my monologue about the deep sea fishing vote, where I said a lot of the people I respect, both fictional and non fictional, a lot of people that I look up to aren't as obsessed with the stuff as I am. So I'm like, what am I even doing?
Hmm.
Obsessing over the little things, over obsessing about collections and the quality of stuff. When a lot of the people I look up to don't even carry a knife, don't even carry a flashlight, or just um, the person makes the stuff. I mean, the person, the user makes the thing. What's the term? It's the man who wears the watch. It's not the watch.
Oh, sure, sure, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of related to this. The more you know, the less you carry. It's like, what's your interpretation of this, first of all, by the way?
The more you know, the less you carry.
Is it saying that you're more knowledgeable and you're more self sufficient, that you don't need a lot more of the excessive stuff? Is that what this is trying to say?
Dude, there's so many ways to interpret this, so I might have to actually read the source quote and for added context. But if I were to just yap about what I think it could mean,
Mm,
one thing that comes to mind is the more you know kind of implies that you have more ability and more confidence, which would then result in less reliance on things that might be potentially crutches, right, to get you through a situation. So, for example, if I don't know what is a good example of something. If I don't know how to do something, then I'll just carry a tool that makes it easier to do. But then once I learn to do that thing, then maybe I don't need that tool or as many tools as I thought I needed. Something to that effect.
mhm.
It could be also like the more you know about yourself or your situation or something, then you realize like I don't need all this other stuff, and that's kind of like your fishing boat realization, I
Yeah,
think.
or you're using stuff to represent yourself when actually you don't.
Hmm.
It actually is not needed in your life if you really think about it. So, okay, I can think of something like um, one of them that I recently gave up the hobby of collecting shoes. I don't need, like, the more I know about now that in my age and the stuff that I really need, I don't really need to buy all of these sneakers or anything. It's not something I can take with me. It's not something that really increases in value. It's just something I'm
Yeah.
blindly purchasing so that I feel like I have a representation of myself on my feet. And the more I know about life, nobody really cares.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that there's no reason to really like hoard stuff and bend over backwards to get the latest sneaker drop or whatever. That's how I'm interpreting this a little bit. But I think it might not apply to very specific things in EDC specifically, like the stuff that humans can naturally do, like cut stuff, produce fire, produce light, those kinds of things. I think there's still room where those bare functionalities that we cannot do as human beings will make those tools eternally useful. But everything else, maybe outside of that,
Hmm.
is just set dressing, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So quickly, for context, the Morse Kachansky quote, he is like a legend in the outdoor survival world, like survivalist world, right? So
Okay.
when you understand that context, it's like the more know-how you have, like survival know-how, like application of your knowledge, then the less gear you actually need.
Right,
which
right.
makes a lot more
Makes
sense. And
sense. Yeah.
I think that's like kind of the more straightforward interpretation of this, to be
True.
honest. My favorite part of this take or the submission though is the end where it says, still my EDC grows. There's like some awareness there that it's like, yeah, I still, maybe I'm learning that I don't know that much. It's like the opposite of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that is worth celebrating. Just having that open mind and realizing that, like, man, maybe there is something still I can learn. So that will justify me buying this headlamp and this fixie and like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. So it's a good one.
Yeah, that made us think a little bit. That's a good. I like that
Yeah,
take.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some better hot takes. I think we'll go back to questions next time, maybe. Just let this cool off. But I appreciate, um, you know, Nico Slaus and Subshirts and Bruno Vieira for all these hot takes to talk about on the show. It was really fun.
Yeah. Cool.
Hopefully interesting for the audience too. So with that said, let's jump into our user submissions. And this one we got here from at elvis.com on Instagram. So they're an infrastructure engineer in New York City. And they said, these are my everyday pals that follow me on my daily subway commute to the city. Pretty minimal, but I will say having an e-reader on the subway is kind of essential. So what do we
Clutch.
got here? We got the Parker Jotter pen. Then we got an Anthony Morado wallet. So it's just like a leather card holder there. Then we got
Mhm.
a Tag Heuer Aqua Racer. This is a discontinued model. Man, this is like really clean. Then you got the Kobo reader and some Moscow Lemtoshes. Muscat? Moscow?
Muscat.
I
Moscow.
forgot. Yeah. But they do have a store in New York City. Yes. But yeah, this is a minimalist, stylish carry that I could definitely see somebody carrying on the New York City subway. So,
What's the thing that stands out to you from this one?
I mean, you know me, I'm into watches and e-readers, so it's smack dab in the middle. This
Right.
combo, yeah.
Did you notice that there's no knife or flashlight in this one?
Oh,
It just
yeah,
completely
true.
it just vanished into the gray. you
Yeah.
just blind you just got color blind to the seeing knives in every carry. That's just all of a sudden one that doesn't have it. You just ignore it.
Oh,
You-
that's interesting, man. Why did you have to
right?
point that out? Ah, that's
Can't unsee it
weird.
now. There's no flashlight. There's no cutting implement. There's no lighter. It's a very normal quote unquote carry.
Yeah, but at the same time, because it's normal, like I didn't like bat an eye at it either. Because I'm just like, yeah, that's like what a normal person would carry.
Right? Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, but then it's funny because you have people like the normal person who sees just any EDC that has like a knife in it or like a bunch of tools. Like, do you really carry all that? What's all that for?
Right.
So that's, I guess, this isn't quite the other side of it, but it is an interesting observation for you to call out that like I just did
It's like
not
face
react at all to the.
blindness, EDC
Yeah,
blindness. Yeah, you just assume
yeah.
that a knife is going to be there somewhere. That when the absence of one is just completely foreign, that you just ignore it. It just falls into the
Hmm.
gaps of the folds of the brain and stuff.
Dude, okay, you know what's insanely meta?
What?
This book that they're reading, The Reality Bubble, you know what
Mhm.
this is about? It's the overview on Goodreads says, "What are we not seeing? Our naked eyes only see a thin sliver of reality. We are blind in comparison to X-rays that peer through the skin."
Wow,
So it's about blind spots and hidden truths and stuff like that. That's crazy. I That
that's
was like not
crazy.
planned at all, but yeah, definitely a blind spot for us that came up here. Um, Man, what other
Yeah.
blind spots in the EDC world are
That
there?
just that kind that's yeah, that's super meta. That's incredible,
Yeah,
actually.
kind of creepy.
Unplanned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Um,
But any notes? Anything else? Like, I love the alternatives from what you usually expect. Tag Heuer isn't really a brand you see
mhm.
commonly among like the normal watch circles, Kobo isn't usually the first thing that comes
True.
to mind when
Yeah.
you think of
Like
e-reader.
if you're like zoomed far away, you might see this, and this is, to no disrespect to Elvis.com. Like,
Yeah,
we like this carry, but
yeah,
from far away you might think like, oh, that's like a Rolex or a Tudor, and then like
exactly.
this is
Yeah,
this is a Kindle, right?
Kindle. Yeah,
But it's like,
and
nah,
some Ray
nah.
Bans. Exactly
Yeah,
right.
exactly. But no, there's actually some curation here,
Yeah,
some
yeah,
unique choices. So I
and
appreciate that too.
there's some longevity in this carry as well. Like the watch has been clearly is discontinued, meaning it's been around for a while and not
Yeah,
even
I like
available
this style
anymore. Yeah.
too, like the older tag style.
Yes.
I think that will be.
Absolutely.
I think it will be more popular. I think it's kind of underrated right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, but cool, and
Awesome.
it makes sense where they are. New York City. That's why you're not carrying the knife. That's why you're not carrying
True.
the flashlight, because you're just in lit places most of the time, and you're not allowed to carry knives. So it makes
City that never
sense.
sleeps. Right.
Yeah. So very cool. Thanks. So you can see more from this submitter at elvis.com on Instagram, all spelled out. So thank you for this submission. And we'll jump into the next one. All right. This is from at Pocket Dump Diary on Instagram. And they're a marketing director in Southern California. So they're saying they work in an office, right? So they have to be careful not to intimidate people with their knives. So the SBK Lamia here is probably the largest knife they carry outside the house at 3.3 inches. Yeah, I feel you. They
Mhm.
say it's a great knife that's collectible, but also very useful, and it just patinas with age. And as for watches, they told themselves they would not own more than 3 nice and pricey watches, and a Panerai Luminor Marina is one of them. And it's a beautiful watch, but
Admirable.
Panerais have been taking a hit in value in the last few years, which means this one will stay put in the collection. So for the pen, they got the tactile turn switch, and it's new to their collection, but they love it. It writes and carries well. And the pry bar is from Oz Machine Company, and it's always great to have around so they don't misuse the pen for prying. And the wallet is from Rustic Heirloom, and it's a workhorse, and they've been carrying the wallets for the past 3 years. And then they've been saying, I've been attempting to slim down my EDC gear for the past year. I want to just own and carry what gets used on a weekly basis, but it's so dang difficult. LOL. I agree.
Ah, yes. The
Yeah, but
struggle we
I think,
all have to
yeah,
deal
we all
with.
go through that phase. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's look a little bit more closely at all these things. So we got the Mighty Hank, and then on top of that we got the tactile turn switch. So you can see here it has this unique kind of like a light switch mechanism.
Yeah.
I believe
It's
it
a
was
lever instead
licensed.
of a
Yeah, yeah. I forget who the original designer was for.
Magnus.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and
Yeah.
then license tactile turn so that they could implement this in their like amazing, American machined
Finish. Yeah.
bodies. Yeah, and then next to that, you got the one piece pry bar, from Oz Machine Company.
I think it's one of the
It,
more tamer
it,
ones.
yeah, yeah. It's. I think it's cool. It's got like the integrated clip, and it's got the this like milling into it bottle
It doesn't
opener.
overdo it with the design, is what I'm thinking
Yeah,
of.
yeah. And
Yeah.
if it exists to save your pen or your knife from prying, then that's like a fair justification for carrying something. But
Definitely.
if you're
Yeah.
trying to slim down your gear and only carry what gets used on a weekly basis, I would challenge you. It's like, are
First
you
to go.
actually, yeah, are you actually tempted to pry with your pen once a week at least? I don't know. I think this would be first to go for me as well.
Right,
Um,
right.
yeah, and then front and center is the SBK Lamia Gen 4 in jello or like yellow, like greenish yellow.
Mhm.
And this is pretty cool. It has like, can I zoom into this? Kind of. You can kind of see all the little micro textures going on here. So it has like a diagonal milling, and then it has these like pills that are milled out in kind of like a waveform pattern. I think they call it nature grip. So that's pretty cool. And then also, the clip also has texture to it, and then the blade as well.
I
So
respect that most of the pieces in this carry focus a lot on the texture. So, like
yeah.
the tactile turn has the standard milling that they have. The Oz Machine Co. Pry Bar also has a special. I forgot what the name of the pattern was, but it has the
Hmm.
like concentric circles.
Hmm.
The pattern on the handle, and even the watch band has its own like texture to it. It's not just like a plain black or a plain leather.
Hmm.
They chose something with a bit more visual interest and a bit more texturing to it. So, and even the hank has a pattern to it, right? So
True,
it's
true.
a lot of it feels very, very intentional. It feels very well curated, and these are not like standard stuff. This isn't even like a standard tactile turret. It's one of their newest ones that
Hmm.
not a lot of people have carried compared to like the bolt action stuff, and yeah, not your standard pry bar either. So very, I feel like it's a very discerning carry. It's a very curated and well chosen relative to the user. So I
Yeah.
really like that.
A couple of other thoughts that come to mind. Um, what do we think of a small seconds like the Luminar Marina, like the small seconds with the date and the Cyclops? I think this is a 40 mil, but still as a office watch on a, I think this is like a Perlon strap or something.
Mhm. I feel like just Panerai in general is just a statement piece on its own,
Yeah.
regardless of which model, because you're paying for the big ass dial with a crown guard and everything.
This huge, yeah,
Yeah,
crown guard
and
thing.
the large indices and the large numerals, because it's something like from across the room, you know, it's a Panerai, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I feel like all Panerai watches are kind of like statement pieces in themselves.
Yeah, it's a nice watch. Don't get me
It
wrong.
is, yeah, yeah.
Like for some reason, I guess I just don't think when I think office watch, I think dressier. But then
Oh,
again,
okay,
like
fair,
people
fair.
just wear Rolex sports
I know
watches. Yeah,
exactly.
that
Yeah,
so I guess, yeah, I guess it makes sense. And
yeah.
then one last thing I wanted to say about this carry is maybe similar to the blind spots of the previous carry is
Mhm.
that I don't think we appreciate enough the background of pocket dumps because this
Yes,
one is color matched kind of with like the
exactly. Yeah.
green and the blue and just the warm tones on the wood. I don't think
Yes.
we appreciate enough because I'm
A
pretty sure this
plus
was
for
intentional,
composition.
right?
Yeah.
Probably saw this piece of wood, it's like, ooh, look at this like blue and green, my carry would look sick on this, and then they just put it down. And yeah, how many people are out there color coordinating to their environment? Thoughts?
The ultimate in knowing. Even the
Yeah,
background is
yeah,
included. Yeah.
yeah. So thank you to at Pocket Dump Diary on Instagram for this submission.
Awesome stuff. Great taste and
Yeah,
stuff.
I like this. So we'll jump into the last one here. This is from at cc.edc on Instagram. And they're a handyman on weekends, so they need gear that's strong and reliable. And they said, well, actually, let's just run through all the items here before we get into the description. So this is, I think, a knife that you own, right, Mikey? The Big
Hmm.
Idea Design Lookout Fixie.
Yeah,
Then
that's
there's
right.
a rustic heirloom hitchhiker. So it's
Oh,
similar to the
yeah.
what's up?
It's the same wallet as the one from the previous carry.
Yeah, but the previous
It's a
one
really
was the
popular. Yeah, Rustic Heirloom has been making waves. It's kind of like a niche leather maker brand, but they've become really popular in the EDC circles
mhm.
I've seen. So it's like a really, it's a simple design, but it's very eye catching. Is what I want to say.
Yeah. The
That
one
button
the one
just
in the
adds that
last
detail.
the one in the last carry was like a best M EDC collab,
Collab.
wasn't
Yeah,
it?
that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I can imagine like that would also help its popularity.
yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, and then front center in the multi tool, we got the Leatherman arc, latest and greatest from Leatherman, and then the flashlight is the Olight Baton 3 Pro, and I think that's in like a brass, no?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think
So
it could be brass or it could be the brown. It wasn't indicated.
oh, just
Yeah,
like a tone. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So speaking of the Olight, they were saying I use my flashlight a lot during the day if it's looking up rafters or looking in an engine. It's always so useful for any everyday tasks, and I always love to carry a knife on me. And the Lookout checks all of my boxes for me, and I absolutely love it. Especially with the weather, with the Weatherman arc, with the Leatherman arc as the MagnaCut blade. That's the cherry on top for this multi tool. And
Mhm.
oh, they said still being a teenager, my funds are always an issue, but I am looking for a titanium flashlight that won't break the bank too bad. Do you have any suggestions? Immediately, my mind goes to Raylight.
Relight. Easy answer.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
Raylight Pineapple Ti probably.
exactly. Mini Pineapple
Yeah.
TI, very affordable. Enthusiast here. Could be your buy ones for life. Um, Another one I'd suggest is, if you can still find it, the Olight i3T in titanium. Very
Mm,
inexpensive, uses a standard AAA, and it's nice in titanium, and it's very two-stage, very simple interface, and it's still one of my favorites for that form factor. So yeah, Raylight Mini Pineapple Titanium, always big hit from Ray, and
yeah.
yeah, OLED i3T. Since you
And
like OLED already,
I know that CCEDC didn't ask this, but because they revealed that they're a teenager and I am their elder, I'm going to give this unsolicited advice. But I will say you don't need the titanium flashlight because the flashlight you have is already probably plenty good. And of the
mm,
two things that we recommended, those are going to be smaller lights that are probably not as performant.
yeah.
And titanium as a flashlight material is not ideal either. So just because it's titanium, I get that it matches the knife and it's cool, but you probably don't need it. And if money is hard to come by as a teenager, then maybe save your bucks, put them back in that rustic heirloom. You know what I'm saying? So
Well, also, now that he's outed himself as a teenager, how are you affording all of this primo
no, that's not
stuff?
allowed. You can't question that.
Hey,
Maybe he works hard. Maybe he was gifted. You know, maybe who knows. But
respect though. Respect. You've
sure.
got some, for a teenager, you've got some really good taste, and you've picked some really nice stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, maybe the kids are all right, you know.
Kids
So,
are, yeah, they could be all right.
yeah. So hopefully those are some useful recommendations or my not so useful unsolicited advice. But like you got some good gear here, and I think you could, maybe you could let it rock for a little bit longer until the funds are looking good. But yeah, so thanks so much. If you want to see more from CCEDC, they're at cc.edc on Instagram. If you want to see that teenager handyman carry stuff. So there you go. And yeah, I think that just about wraps it up for today's episode. So if you made it this far, thanks so much for listening. Please hit the subscribe, share with a friend, and follow us on our socials. And if you want to be a part of our EDC community, feel free to hop into our Facebook group or Discord server for more real-time discussion with other EDCers. Lastly, if you have any feedback for us or questions you want answered on the show, you can shoot us an email at podcast@everydaycarry.com. Thank you so much for listening to Carry the Way. I'm Bernard.
And I'm Mikey, and I'm sorry you had to deal with my voice for an hour and a half. I'll do my best this weekend to get better and come back stronger next week.
Yeah, and until the next one, peace and health and happiness and
Thank you.
peace. Yes. Okay.